This is the essay review of family law, like a pre-marriage, premarital agreements, contract and contemplation of marriage, requirements freely made, in writing, signed by both parties, full financial disclosures, fair and reasonable economic provisions, may not set forth grounds for divorce, void if the couple doesn't wed. Spousal support, not enforced if it makes one spouse poor. Gifts in contemplation of marriage, such as the engagement ring, are recoverable. Non-marital children, if the child's conceived before marriage but born after marriage, that is a marital child. Generally, a non-marital child has the same rights as a marital child. Who can marry? You must have consent, capacity, be of legal age, or with parental or judicial approval. Must be single, not a close relation, and same-sex marriage is now legal in all 50 states. Procedural requirements for marriage: obtain a license and participate in a solemnization ceremony where you must have one witness, usually one witness each. Marital consequences: they are sexual exclusivity as a responsibility. Rights: you can each retain separate identities for legal purposes, own property in individual names, have separate domiciles, etc., etc., etc. Termination of a marriage. There's 5 ways to terminate. Declaration of nullity. This is where there's bigamy or incest, blood relation, non-age. Annulment. An annulment may be for a number of reasons. You may set aside avoidable marriage for non-age, mental capacity, duress, fraud, or incurable physical incapacities, such as you can't safely have sex. So you have nullity, annulment. You may also get divorce. There's 5 grounds generally for divorce: cruel and inhumane treatment, adultery, desertion, voluntary drug addiction, alcoholism, insanity. And then you have no-fault divorce. This is a unilateral decision by one spouse that marriage is irretrievable, must be separated for greater than 6 months, must testify under oath and show relationship broken down irretrievably or irreconcilable differences. Looking at jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction. If one spouse is domiciled in a state, there is jurisdiction for that state to adjudicate the marriage. Look to domicile for at least 90 days. Personal jurisdiction over the other party is required for orders such as alimony and or child support. Looking at termination of the marriage and economic results, you have maintenance, which is also called alimony. You have types of maintenance are temporary, permanent, rehabilitative, and or lump sum payment. Looking at temporary alimony and or maintenance, this is maintains the status quo while the case is in process. You have permanent, periodic. This is courts considered numerous factors awarding maintenance, including who's at fault, the age and or health of the parties, education, earning capacity, the duration of the marriage, whether custody affects the ability to work and then provide for themselves. You have rehabilitative maintenance. This is awarded by court to assist a spouse in obtaining an education or job training. Courts consider whether the paying spouse obtained greater education or job skills during marriage, whether the payee provided support for the other spouse to do so. Then, of course, lump sum, you just get a check and move on with your life. Enforcement of maintenance and or alimony. If payment cease, courts can seize and sell property, take away driver's license, revoke professional licenses, send them to jail. Modification of maintenance is allowed but must show substantial change in circumstances. But if maintenance is provided for in a separation agreement, you must show extreme hardship. Termination of alimony terminates with death of either party or spouse receiving payments remarries. Cohabitation is typically not enough to terminate. Division of property, separate property. So you have marital property and non-marital property. Separate or non-marital property is property owned before marriage. Gifts or bequeaths to spouse during marriage in their name only. Property spouse agrees. Property the spouses agree to be separate property or non-marital property. Personal injury awards and or appreciation value of any of the above. Looking at marital property, this is property acquired during marriage, gifts made in contemplation of marriage, vested intangibles such as stocks and pensions, value of professional licenses acquired during marriage. Yeah, child support's the duty of the parents to provide support, typically until 18, very slightly. Duty of non-parents, liability for support extends to parents who relinquishes control is still liable for support until the child is adopted, or a person who acted as a parent and created reliance may be liable for support. Modification of child support, if substantial change in financial situation, child care costs, age of the child, and a relative income. Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, UISFA, provides that once initial support order entered, all states must defer to that order. Child custody, it's in child custody separation agreements regarding children are enforced if in the child's best interest, can be merged with the divorce. The custody standard, this is the best interest of the child standard. Courts consider keeping kids together, what the child wants, both spouses' marital and living situations, the educational and or financial position of the parents, health of the parties, and history of domestic violence. Non-parent versus parent custody, there's a presumption that it's best interest of the child to be with a biological parent unless there's extraordinary circumstances and there's no fitness of the biological parent. Joint custody, each parent gets significant but not necessarily equal time with the child. Visitation, if you lose custody, biological parents are always given visitation. Relocation, the custodial parent must get permission from the court and show that it is in child's best interest to relocate. Modification of child custody must prove substantial change in circumstances of moving party. Jurisdiction, in all states, divorce courts are authorized to make custody awards. Court has jurisdiction to initially enter or modify custody award if it is in the child's home state. In the child's home state, look to the child's home for greater than 6 consecutive months and whether one parent is still located in that home state. In regards to conflict of laws, a state issuing the initial order has continuing exclusive jurisdiction. Other courts must defer thereto. Parent, child, and state legal disabilities of the child. Medical care requires parental consent except for abortion, birth control, and STD treatment. Tort liability, they're liable for their own torts. Looking at adoption, jurisdiction where a parent and child are domiciled for 6 months, potential parents located, substantial evidence of child's care, adoption location, adoptors state. So there's a lot of opportunities for jurisdiction in adoption. Who can adopt? Almost anybody can adopt. Who can be adopted? Any child or adult if a bona fide intent to establish a parent-child relationship. Consent is generally needed. Methods may have a licensed agency or independent placement. And that completes, surrogacy adoption alternatives, assisted reproduction, and surrogacy agreements. Looking at surrogacy agreements, this is a written gestational agreement with an adult woman to bear a child through assisted reproduction. Court must approve before conception or agreement unenforceable. Gestation. So the court must approve the surrogacy agreement before conception, or the surrogacy agreement will be unenforceable. Gestational mother is responsible for fetus health decisions, must notify court upon birth. And that completes our sections of family law for the essay review.